In the age of smartphones and social media, everyone's a filmmaker, but sometimes the camera keeps rolling when it should have stopped. In this video, we're examining 6 pieces of footage that captured the terrifying seconds before tragedy struck. It was September 5th, 2018. The pre-dawn air over Cappadocia's volcanic landscape hung still and deceptively calm. Perfect conditions for the hundreds of hot air balloons that would soon dot the Turkish sky. Emre Yilmaz, a 33-year-old travel vlogger from Istanbul, had built a modest following documenting off-the-beaten-path adventures across Turkey and Eastern Europe. His YouTube channel specialized in aerial cinematography, particularly sunrise shots that required early morning flights when winds were calmest. That morning, every legitimate balloon operator in Cappadocia was fully booked for the peak tourist season. Rather than waiting for availability, Emre contacted a small, licensed but negligent operator offering discounted flights. The company's inspection certification had expired, and the operator had a documented history of ignoring morning wind restriction advisories, including mandatory stand-down periods issued by local aviation authorities. Emre likely knew the risks, but prioritized capturing the sunrise footage. The balloon launched at 5:45 a.m. with only 4 passengers instead of the usual 16-person capacity. The pilot worked alone without the required crew support. Emre positioned himself near the basket's edge to film. As Emre filmed the spectacular sunrise over Cappadocia's fairy chimneys and cave dwellings at approximately 450 feet during a low-altitude, terrain-following scenic pass, the balloon encountered a sudden, unforecast lateral wind shift channeled between rock formations. The pilot attempted an aggressive corrective maneuver at low altitude, misjudging clearance and drift rate, causing the basket to yaw and tilt sharply toward the canyon wall. Passengers were thrown against the interior wicker panels as the pilot fought to regain control with short burner blasts. Emre's footage shows the basket swinging uncontrollably as passengers screamed in terror. During the forced descent, the balloon's envelope made repeated contact with jagged rock outcrops, progressively scraping, tearing, and weakening fabric panels and load-bearing seams. Each contact increased heat loss incrementally, as hot air vented through multiple damaged sections, causing a cascading reduction in lift rather than a single catastrophic failure. Ground witnesses later reported seeing the envelope visibly deform and sag over several seconds as the balloon slid sideways along the cliff face. The basket slammed against rocks and a steep slope in a chaotic landing. Emre's camera captured him bracing against the basket wall moments before the frame tilted violently and went black. A nearby licensed balloon pilot immediately radioed for emergency assistance, but rescue teams took 45 minutes to reach the remote crash site due to rugged terrain. The medical examiner determined Emre died from blunt force trauma and crush injuries. His autopsy revealed multiple broken ribs, severe skull fractures, and massive internal hemorrhaging consistent with high-impact collision and basket tipping against rocky surfaces during forced landing. The combination of violent impact with rocks and crushing as the basket shifted proved instantly fatal. The operator was not immediately charged. Instead, a months-long aviation investigation followed, examining maintenance records, expired inspection documentation, flight logs, and ignored weather restrictions. Nearly 8 months later, the licensed operator was convicted of criminal negligence resulting in death. Emre's final video, recovered from his damaged camera, became evidence in the prosecution and prompted stricter enforcement of balloon operator oversight. It was December 31st, 2015. The humid evening air in Rio de Janeiro's Copacabana district hung heavy with anticipation as fireworks preparation echoed across the city. Gabriel Garcia Souza, 28, worked at a construction supply warehouse. He spent evenings hosting rooftop gatherings, filming for his friends on his social media. Friends described him as reckless but charismatic, always pushing boundaries to create memorable videos. Gabriel's building, constructed during Rio's rapid expansion period, featured minimal safety features and had never undergone formal structural inspection, including load testing for railing or balcony slab. It technically met the residential load standards in place at the time of construction, but reflected outdated codes that were never upgraded to account for modern safety expectations. The balcony's concrete railing, designed for aesthetic purposes, rather than crowd support, showed visible cracks that Gabriel had noticed but dismissed as cosmetic damage. With internal steel rebar already corroded from decades of coastal humidity and salt-laden air, an issue common in older seaside Rio buildings, especially along slab edges and railings. That evening, Gabriel planned his largest New Year celebration yet, inviting over 40 people to his small apartment for a midnight countdown. His girlfriend expressed concerns about the crowd size, but Gabriel dismissed her worries, saying that he's confident his balcony could handle the weight. However, the building superintendent had specifically warned residents against large gatherings, citing structural concerns and the risk of railing failure. Minutes before midnight, 32 people had crammed into Gabriel's apartment, with 15 tightly packed on the narrow balcony, shoulder to shoulder, many leaning against the railing for camera positioning. As the countdown approached, guests leaned forward together while cheering and chanting rhythmically, creating repeated lateral loads against the railing. Gabriel positioned himself against the barrier, encouraging guests to cheer louder for his video. The railing, designed to support individual weight only, began showing stress fractures under the collective load, with visible shifting and small pieces of concrete chipping off, exposing rust-flaked rebar at the slab edge. People noticed the railing moving slightly, but Gabriel continued filming, prioritizing content over safety. In moments, the deteriorated concrete railing catastrophically failed. The snapping section pulled down part of the balcony edge slab, causing Gabriel and 4 of the closest guests to fall 15 feet to the concrete sidewalk below. The footage captured the exact moment the railing gave way, showing Gabriel and those nearest the edge plunging first, while other balcony occupants scrambled back to safety. Gabriel fell chest first onto the concrete, his upper torso absorbing the initial impact before his head struck seconds later, resulting in devastating force. Screaming guests attempted to help the others, but the sudden collapse left no time for effective rescue. Emergency services received multiple calls at 11:53 p.m. from witnesses on the street. Street congestion due to New Year crowds slightly delayed access, but paramedics arrived within 8 minutes, finding Gabriel unconscious with massive trauma. Despite immediate medical attention, he was pronounced dead at the scene. The other 4 victims sustained serious injuries, but survived after emergency surgery at a nearby trauma center. The medical examiner determined Gabriel died from multiple blunt force trauma, including skull fractures, broken pelvis, crushed chest cavity, and severe internal organ rupture, consistent with a chest-first impact onto unyielding concrete, followed by secondary head trauma. Gabriel's family held a private funeral, attended by close relatives and construction co-workers. In the weeks following the incident, city officials issued localized inspection orders for older coastal residential buildings in Copacabana. It was February 19, 2015. The morning air at a remote ski resort in Chamonix, France hung still and cold, with fresh powder masking the mechanical failures that would claim 3 lives before noon. The aging lift system, installed in 1987 and showing visible wear on its cable attachments, would malfunction catastrophically within the hour. Julien Moreau, a 32-year-old ski instructor, was pursuing mountain guide certification through the local Alpine Association. Friends described him as enthusiastic but often careless, prioritizing excessive adventures over safety protocols. He frequently explored lesser-known slopes and older infrastructure, requiring taking risks that others avoided. Modern ski lifts feature multiple redundant safety systems, but older installations like this rely on basic mechanical components that require constant maintenance. The chair's detachable grip mechanism, responsible for clamping the chair assembly to the moving cable, showed signs of long-term metal fatigue, internal wear, and microfractures invisible during cursory visual inspections. Maintenance crews had previously noted reduced grip tolerance under high wind and load conditions, warning that loss of clamping force could allow full detachment from the haul rope. Resort management had scheduled major repairs for the following season, prioritizing cost savings over immediate safety upgrades. That morning, according to Julien's close friends, he planned to film a vintage lift experience for his friends and a girl he wanted to impress, specifically choosing the resort's oldest chairlift because he said newer systems lacked character. Maintenance logs from the previous week indicated minor bracket issues, recommended limiting chairs to 2 passengers instead of 3, and noted wind gust sensitivity, but resort operators continued normal operations to avoid revenue loss during peak season. The lift was operating understaffed that morning, with a single operator overseeing multiple towers and failing to slow or halt the system as wind conditions worsened. Weather services had issued high wind warnings, with gusts expected to reach 30 to 35 miles per hour with sudden gust spikes. But Julian either wasn't aware of this or dismissed these alerts, likely focused on capturing unique footage before conditions deteriorated. By 10:30 a.m., Julian and his friends boarded the chairlift with his phone recording the experience. The lift operated normally for the first 100 feet, climbing steadily up the steep mountain face. At approximately 150 feet above the rocky slope, unusual vibrations began affecting their chair, exaggerated by rapid wind-driven oscillations during brief gust spikes. Julian continued filming despite obvious mechanical stress as the chair swayed violently. Minutes later, the fatigued grip mechanism malfunctioned during sustained oscillation, losing clamping force and failing to maintain secure contact with the main cable. Julian's phone captured the exact moment the chair assembly detached due to grip failure, leaving no time for corrective action by operators or passengers. Investigators later concluded that a single chair detachment occurred due to a combination of long-term metal fatigue and operator failure to slow or stop the lift under worsening wind conditions. The chair then plummeted into the steep, snow-filled valley below. Based on the investigation, the fall was angled, with the chair scraping jagged rocks and snow, causing metal deformation and powder eruption around the impact site. A lift operator who witnessed the accident immediately called emergency services, and the helicopter took 45 minutes to arrive. Mountain rescue teams found all 3 victims dead upon arrival, with 2 victims thrown clear on impact and 1 pinned near the twisted chair frame. The medical examiner determined all 3 died instantly upon impact, with the rocky slope beneath the snow. The families filed negligence lawsuits against the resort, and the footage played a major role in citing inadequate maintenance, ignored wind advisories, failure to enforce passenger load limits, and insufficient safety inspections of aging equipment. It was July 8, 2016. The afternoon sun blazed over a private villa's swimming pool in Antalya, Turkey, where children's laughter mixed with the sound of splashing water. Little did they know, the corroded ladder structure, weakened by years of coastal salt air and minimal maintenance, would collapse within minutes. Layla Demir, 37, taught 3rd grade at a local primary school. She frequently organized elaborate birthday celebrations and family gatherings, planning everything for her small community. She often spends her time with her nephews and nieces in playful scenarios, with Layla often positioning herself as the fun aunt, willing to participate in any adventure. Residential pool slides require regular structural inspection due to constant exposure to chlorinated water, humidity, and temperature fluctuations. Pool equipment manufacturers recommend annual safety inspections, but many private installations, especially older aftermarket systems adapted for residential decks, receive minimal oversight until catastrophic failure occurs. That afternoon, others said that Layla planned to film herself jumping from the slide's top platform in a stunt for her nephew's birthday. The preparation unfolded within the fixed frame of the villa's security footage, which showed her gesturing and positioning herself near the ladder. The slide's ladder showed obvious corrosion at the base mounting points, with severely corroded anchor bolts and visible concrete spalling around the bolt pockets, with rust flakes visible around the bolts securing it to the concrete deck. The pool's shallow end, measuring only 4 feet deep directly below the slide, was far below standard safety recommendations requiring a minimum 6-foot depth for elevated diving platforms, emphasizing the stunt-like nature of her plan. Security camera timestamps show that by 3:15 p.m., children were playing in the pool while Layla began climbing the metal ladder. The camera recorded her ascent from a distance, capturing the ladder visibly flexing with each step. Each rung creaked under her weight. At approximately 7 feet above the pool deck, the ladder's mounting brackets began separating from their concrete anchors, weakened by years of rust expansion that had cracked and spalled the surrounding concrete. The camera angle clearly showed the ladder shifting laterally, but Layla continued climbing despite obvious structural instability. Moments later, the ladder's primary support bracket failed completely. The camera captured the sudden collapse in full view as Layla was thrown sideways off the ladder. She struck the concrete pool edge with devastating force before sliding into the shallow water below. Frame-by-frame review later showed her head impacting the deck edge before her body entered the water face first, followed by several seconds of motionless submersion. Her husband immediately jumped into the pool, pulling Layla's limp body from the water within 30 seconds of impact. Other adults quickly separated the children from the pool area, who screamed in alarm, while someone called emergency services. The ambulance arrived 18 minutes later, reflecting local traffic and suburban distance. Paramedics found Layla unconscious, with severe head trauma and irregular breathing. Despite immediate CPR and rapid transport to the regional trauma center, she was pronounced dead at the hospital, never regaining consciousness. The medical examiner determined death resulted from massive cranial trauma and cervical spine fracture caused by the concrete impact. Her funeral was held 3 days later at a small mosque in Antalya, attended by family members, fellow teachers, neighbors, and parents of former students. The footage documenting the collapse remained central evidence after legal proceedings were initiated and a formal investigation followed. It was October 23, 2017. The narrow lanes of Jaipur's historic market district buzzed with festival preparations. Arav Kaimal, a 29-year-old local resident out to buy gifts for his family, navigated the dense throng with a heavy shopping bag in hand. Arav worked as a floor manager at a local electronics shop and was well known in the neighborhood for his quiet, hard-working nature. That day, he was focused solely on completing his errands before the evening prayers. However, the sheer volume of the crowd made every step a struggle. The entire market area was monitored by a network of government-installed CCTV cameras, one of which was positioned directly above the intersection where the tragedy would soon unfold. Festival crowd management in historic Indian markets presents extreme challenges due to narrow medieval streets designed for foot traffic and animals, not modern crowds. During major festivals, vendor stalls made of lightweight bamboo and cloth reduce walkway width to less than 4 feet, while thousands of shoppers funnel through confined spaces with minimal emergency exits. Crowd density can exceed about 1 to 1.5 square feet per person average, creating dangerous compression zones where individuals lose control of their movement. Temporary barriers and crowd control measures are often strained or poorly anchored, relying on traditional crowd flow patterns that break down during peak festival periods. Local volunteers and temple security sometimes assist, but their presence is limited. That afternoon, Arav found himself trapped at the market's most congested intersection. Local authorities had issued crowd advisories recommending vendors reduce stall sizes, but most ignored these guidelines to maximize festival sales. Arav had mentioned to his mother that morning that the markets felt more claustrophobic than usual, but he needed to finish his shopping. Police presence was minimal, with only 2 officers assigned to monitor the entire market district containing over 200 vendor stalls, supplemented only by a few volunteers. By 4:30 p.m., crowd density had reached dangerous levels as festival shoppers funneled through the narrow market lanes. Arav was forced against a stone wall by the sheer pressure of the human tide, his shopping bag pinned against his chest. Behind him, vendors shouted warnings as a massive crowd surge began building pressure in the confined space, with exhaustion and heat reducing individual balance and reaction time. The medieval street layout created a bottleneck effect, with thousands of people pressing forward through passages. Suddenly, panic erupted after a lightweight vendor stall collapsed, and a rumor of further structural failure or sudden perceived threat rippled through the crowd, triggering improvised pushing as people attempted to escape the area. The overhead security camera captured the chilling sequence in high definition, a sudden ripple in the crowd, followed by a violent wave of motion. The footage showed Arav attempting to maintain his footing before being knocked down and pinned under multiple bodies. The CCTV angle showed the terrifying scale of the crush as dozens of people were pushed over him in a matter of seconds. The surge only began to subside when the 2 police officers blew whistles and used their batons to strike the stone walls, creating a loud, rhythmic cracking sound that finally halted the forward momentum. The crowd began to cautiously peel back. The security feed showed the local vendors being the first to drop to their knees, desperately pulling bodies from the pile after barrier sections failed and pressure released unevenly. A vendor called emergency services at 4:49 p.m., but the aftermath was its own obstacle. The narrow streets, combined with fallen carts, scattered merchandise, and dazed survivors blocking the way prevented ambulance access for 28 minutes. Police struggled to push the remaining crowd back into side alleys to create a narrow corridor. Rescue workers had to carry Arab's unconscious body on a makeshift stretcher through the crowd to reach medical vehicles waiting blocks away. The medical examiner determined death resulted from compressive asphyxia and severe blunt trauma caused by multiple people trampling him simultaneously. Festival organizers introduced limited, festival-specific crowd control protocols for subsequent events, including wider vendor aisles, temporary barriers, and the use of local volunteers to manage human traffic flow during peak festival days only. The footage was not released to the public. It was March 15, 2014. The morning air along Queenstown's Shotover River carried the sound of rushing water over granite boulders, masking the deadly debris that recent storms had deposited throughout the narrow canyon. The submerged logs and elevated water levels from recent rainfall would prove fatal within the hour. Nina Marie Martinez, 26, worked full-time at a downtown coffee shop while building her YouTube channel documenting extreme sports adventures around Queenstown. Her energetic personality and willingness to tackle dangerous rapids attracted 1,400 subscribers seeking authentic New Zealand adventure content. Whitewater kayaking in New Zealand's alpine rivers requires expert navigation skills due to unpredictable currents, submerged obstacles, and rapidly changing water levels. The Shotover River features rapids with narrow channels carved through solid rock, creating powerful hydraulics that can trap kayakers underwater for extended periods. Recent storms had deposited massive logs throughout the river system, creating invisible hazards beneath the surface that could flip kayaks instantly. Professional guides strongly recommend helmets and avoiding the river during high water periods. Nina was wearing a personal flotation device, but no helmet. That morning, Nina planned to film herself navigating the river's most technical section, specifically targeting a narrow rapid known for its challenging hydraulics and recirculating keeper holes. Local authorities had issued flood warnings following 3 days of heavy rainfall, advising against all river activities until water levels receded. Nina ignored these warnings, focused on capturing dramatic footage during peak flow conditions when the rapids appeared most impressive. Her boyfriend expressed serious concerns about the dangerous water levels, but Nina dismissed his warnings, confident her life jacket would provide adequate protection. By around noon, Nina had successfully navigated several smaller rapids while providing enthusiastic commentary for her camera. She wore a standard life jacket, believing the buoyancy device offered sufficient protection for her skill level. Approaching the river's most dangerous section, she noticed multiple logs floating in the current, but continued filming, describing the challenging conditions as exciting rather than life-threatening. The elevated water levels had created powerful undercurrents that could easily overwhelm inexperienced kayakers. As she entered the rapid, Nina's kayak was suddenly pinned and flipped by a submerged strainer, with fast-moving water forcing the hull sideways and inverting it abruptly. Her helmet-mounted camera captured the moment in a shaky, spinning, and partially obscured view, showing her kayak tilting sideways before flipping completely, trapping her underwater in the powerful current. Nina was pulled underwater repeatedly because a strong hydraulic recirculation held her submerged and recycled her against the obstruction despite her flotation device. The force of the current pinned the kayak against the submerged log, preventing her from wet exiting or breaking free. Hikers on the riverbank witnessed her kayak surface empty, while Nina remained trapped beneath the surface, caught in the hydraulic's recirculating current. One hiker immediately called emergency services at 11:54 a.m., but the remote canyon location required a helicopter evacuation that took 37 minutes to arrive. The crew faced difficulty landing and securing a stretcher due to the narrow canyon walls and the turbulent river below. Rescue divers recovered Nina's body several hundred feet downstream, wedged against a logjam in roughly 12 feet of water. Her camera had continued recording until the battery died, providing crucial evidence of the accident sequence. The medical examiner determined death resulted from drowning, with minor blunt trauma to her torso and arms from impact with submerged logs. A private funeral service was held for Nina at a local chapel in Queenstown. Family requested the deletion of the footage. Following the incident, volunteers and guides were instructed to actively enforce closures and assist paddlers during high water periods. Thanks for watching. If you like these stories, click here.